All right, so I am with Jonathan Baxter,
Hello.
aka Bags,
That's
aka
me.
that's your nickname.
That is
Bags.
it. That is. I'm Bags.
Ba-
Even my wife calls me that.
Jonathan Bags Baxter.
That's
of
right.
Rock Springs Church, the Macon campus of Rock Springs Church. He's the technical director, and we're here talking all things tech, all things live production, and he obviously uses Resi, and
I do.
So we're gonna talk about all the things.
Yes, we are.
So one.
All right.
Thank you so much for chatting.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This is
Dude,
my first time on a podcast. I feel like a little kind of official here.
Absolutely. Of course you're official. Now I am a little weary because you did not pass the live streaming challenge. You did not get a 5 for 5 at Philo at the live stream challenge.
Okay.
So,
I want to clear the air here. The only person that did get it right guessed.
That is potentially true, but no one got a 5 for 5.
No.
Everyone got at least one question wrong, including yourself.
I did.
So this is
that,
redemption
yeah.
time.
Okay. Oh, okay. Oh gosh.
This is redemption time. No. I mean, let's just talk about your whole production at Rock Spring. Like,
okay.
what does a everyday Sunday look like for you guys? What's your typical process? And you can go as granular as amount of cameras, amount of hardware that you utilize, workflow.
Okay.
Yeah. What are you rocking?
So it's nothing groundbreaking. We are running probably a bit more. I don't want to say maybe production value or quality, but a bit more like gear and just moving parts than the average bear. So like you said in the intro, I'm the technical director of the Macon campus here in Macon, Georgia. Our main campus is in Milner, Georgia, which is about roughly 30 minutes north of here. And so we have as far as Resi hardware, and obviously we're doing the whole satellite multi-site satellite campuses stuff. So we are a satellite of the Milner campus. So what that looks like on an average day is in Milner there's 2 Prism encoders, one that goes up to Facebook, YouTube, all the socials. The other one, they're called the cheerleader and the ugly one. It's a movie reference. I can't remember, but the encoders have names. But anyway, then one is obviously the multi-site, and then obviously we have a decoder here. Actually, I'm pointing over at that rack. It used to be right there, but me and Ian, you were talking before about the video router I installed this week. We moved all of that into another room so we can get rid of this ugly mess back here. But so we have our multi-site decoder here. And we're sending 2 streams from Milner to here. We've got a static wide shot that's like a kind of a shot of the stage, and then we have a switched input that goes on our side screens, and the static wide goes on our big LED wall in the middle to more or less make it look like our senior pastor during the sermon is here on premises when he's not. Then as far as just in-house stuff, I could talk more about Milner later, but as far as Macon campus, outside of Resi stuff used to stream in pastor and all that, we run anywhere from, depends on the day, 2 to 3 man cameras for IMAG, and then we've got like a lipstick cam Marshall in the drum booth, and we got another Marshall over on keys, and we're using PVP. We're using PVP to control input outputs to all the LED walls, and we're using Pro Presenter obviously because you got to have that. And
that's right.
Yeah, so an average Sunday for us is basically like it's a pretty familiar format. So like in Milner they do a pre-show thing, like the 10 minutes till they'll start at about 6 minutes till first song, right? Mm-hmm. And they'll do like a little pre-show announcements and all that, and it's kind of like TV style. Like they've got the microphones with the little flags on it. This is not a microphone, but you get the idea. And they got
that's a wonderful microphone.
Yeah,
I love the example.
Good morning and welcome to Rock Springs Church. My name is Jonathan. That kind of deal, right? And so they'll usually do have like 2 of them. They're riffing off each other, and they use that to do like instead of doing kind of the boring old kind of announcements, and just to give it some new air. And then they roll straight from there. They usually end pre-show around like 30 or 40 seconds till the first song. And then right after they end pre-show, then band will play a little intro and they'll intro the first song. That's pretty much how it goes. What's interesting about that for us here is we get this portion over Resi. And so they'll put a cue for that. They'll put a cue for pre-show start and pre-show end. So on our decoder, we select pre-show start, and then we also start playing that back at 6 minutes. I actually have a Stream Deck button. My switcher panel is behind me. There's a Stream Deck next to it. I got to start and stop pre-show, start and stop sermon. And so that's kind of how Resi fits into our workflow. So we'll do the pre-show, and then we do the same thing here. So it'll end around 45, 30 seconds till song start. The band will play their little intro, then song start, and then we'll roll 2-3 songs, welcome, 1-2 more songs, sermon bumper, and then punch the go button for Resi, and pastor's up on the screen, and then from there it's kind of just wrap it up. And so that's pretty much how we do it. One thing, if for what it's worth, and actually I would be curious to hear some feedback on this, because to see how other places do it, because I'm actually not certain. Like the pastor gets to, we're at a satellite campus here, right? So pastor ends his sermon. The way we do it is they have kind of like not a code word, but basically he'll start his altar call portion using this phrase, every head bowed, every eye shut. And then and there's a cue for that in Resi, they'll mark it with a cue. And so we can count down how much time we have left until that moment. And so at 1 minute until that cue, we open up our campus pastor's mic channel. So he says, every head bowed, every eye shut. We hit the stop button, which also cuts to a camera shot, and then he repeats every head bowed, every eye shut, walks up on stage and basically takes it over. So that's kind of how we get back into the in-person part. But so that's basically that's basically kind of our workflow. Let me throw it back to you. I'm curious, have you seen how anybody else kind of transitions out of that?
No, I haven't. That's actually a really good
I'd be
idea.
curious.
I like that. I mean, I know that there are some people that hook up little tally lights to the decoder.
Yeah.
That is visible from the stage, and to do a more visual cue. But I really like that, eyes,
not a bad
heads
idea
bows, eyes shut.
Yeah, and then the campus pastor just repeats it. Yeah, like every head bowed, every eye shut. Every head bowed, every eye shut. And then he comes up and does his, maybe not that aggressive, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
and it kind of starts the altar call invitational portion, and then kind of just wraps it up like you just, it's pretty seamless as long as nobody hits the button too quickly over here. That happens. That happens from time to time. I was standing in for our video director last week. I had to stand in for our video director last week because he was out for some reason, and I was the monkey behind the panel, and I hit the button too early and cut off a word or two.
Listen, we've all had the monkey brain moments. Okay,
yeah.
That's inevitable. It doesn't matter how skilled you are or how long you've been doing it.
I also put the senior pastor, or the campus pastor's big old bald mug up on the iMag by accident, right in the middle of the sermon, right towards the end of the sermon, because I was they had a point up on the screen, and I was trying to have one of my camera guys frame him up to follow him up on the stage for that moment.
Yeah.
I had it in preview, and then they go, all right, point's over, go cut back to Resi. Didn't realize that Resi wasn't in my preview anymore, and punched the cut button.
Yep.
Yeah. And so Noah's sitting there like, watching the screen, and he looks over at the camera, and I'm like, oop. My bad. Yeah, we all do it.
Oh, listen, if you can shoot for like a 95% perfect
exactly.
stream, that's amazing. 95% is great.
It's funny. Me and him were at lunch, and we were talking. He's my campus pastor. Me and him were at lunch the other day, and we were talking about mistakes and gaffes and little goof ups, and it was like they're not all the same. You got some that are you got some that, while they might be equally as easy to do or equally as possible to happen, there's the way he put it that I thought was interesting was there's some that cost a lot more than others. So like me, me hitting the button a little too quickly and cutting off a word or two, that one doesn't cost all that much. That one's not a big deal. But me throwing up his big old mug in the middle of the end part of the service where they're trying to really put an emphasis on certain things in the sermon, that one cost a bit more. And so it's just, we're talking about like how to minimize the ones that cost a bit more than the little gaffes that no one will ever see anyway. I thought that was an interesting way to put it.
No, I fully agree with that. Yeah, because you want to keep the experience.
Yeah, for sure.
For everyone in the room, just like keep them in and. Yeah.
The last thing you want to be the last thing you want to do is be distracting. Like our whole job as church production church production staffers and volunteers is to create the experience and create the opportunity for them to communicate the gospel message to congregation, online audience, and the last thing you want to do is distract from that. So that's if you think about it, that's kind of like our job title right there is disseminate the message, eliminate distractions.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Right. Right. And it's, at the end of the day, if no one comes up to you,
Yeah,
then that's a
like
job
a good
well done.
day.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because if you do your job right, you're not noticed.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes it's there's two, as you know, there's two sides to that coin, because a lot of times when you hear something, it's not a good job. It's, hey, something's messed up. And then when you did a good job, you don't hear anything. So sometimes it's a little, but yes, if I don't get a phone call, I'm like, good to go, baby.
Yep. Job well done.
Yep, that's right.
So on your end of things,
Mm-hmm.
you're obviously receiving from your main campus using the decoder. Now you're also streaming out. Yes.
Not here. Now we are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're working on that because the idea is to make this like broadcast campus too, and so he could wake up in the morning. I think we talked about this at Philo too, maybe, but basically make it to where he could wake up on a Sunday morning and be like, I want to be in Macon or I want to be in Milner, and be able to be just as capable as the Milner campus. We've got Clark coming in. Actually, we had a meeting with them yesterday. I want to say they're coming in sometime in the next couple of months, and we've got a big as-built that's coming in. So new desks and stuff out there, new PA, and part of that'll be video. But the goal is to get to a point where he could wake up on a Sunday morning and be here, or be there, and because we all get the same content. Like we all get his sermon notes, announcement slides. We all get the same content. So really, as long as the room is equipped to do it, he reasonably could do that.
Okay, so all of your cameras, all of your everything is solely for
iMag,
the in-house experience. iMag.
At the moment. Now, so the Macon campus merged. So there was another Macon campus across town. It was a lot smaller, and it was in a smaller building, but they were running good numbers. We're in a massive facility here in Macon, and we had started to just have some attendance and financial issues. So, but they were also leasing that building over there, and they were looking for a more permanent spot. So it kind of just happened that we ended up
bring it together.
Yes, our congregation voted to merge with Rock Springs Macon, and so at the time we were equipped to stream because this was the only campus. So this was the streaming campus, and so all the infrastructure and all the workflow and all that is set up to do that. It's just not being encoded and set up right now, but we run everything like it is. I mean, you could honestly, like on a day like say, actually this Sunday, Pastor Benny's going to be here this Sunday. Now he's having somebody else preach up at the main campus, but he'll be here this coming Sunday. And honestly, if you threw an encoder in the rack over there and sent it up, it would look better than what it looked like before the merge. Yeah, and so
I was going to say, all you need is an encoder. It sounds like everything else is good. Yep. I mean, especially with your new router in place.
Oh yeah. I don't love pulling all the cable because it was in this rack. All the video gear and the switcher and all that was in this rack right here. That's a hot mess, and I'm very glad it's out of focus because if it was, right. Very glad that's out of focus, but it was right here. So everything in the building, like infrastructure-wise, landed there. Well, we moved that across to a room that's behind the stage. Right now, I'm in our broadcast video suite. It's basically like that direction is towards stage, and on the other side of the wall, on this side is front of house, and then the stage is in that direction. So I'm kind of like in the very back of the room. But we moved it to an amp room that's behind one of the iMag screens over there. So it's all the way across on the other side of the building now. So we had to re-pull everything. I mean, I'm serious. I've probably pulled a couple thousand feet of SDI in the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Bought $500 worth of SDI or worth of BNC connectors this week from the local supply house.
Yep.
So, but yeah, the router's great though because obviously, as you know, it gives you the flexibility to put whatever wherever. Oh, one cool thing we did. We had the idea to put an Apple TV up in the rack back there and plug it into the router, and then that way if someone needs to AirPlay to the TV in their classroom, you see where I'm going with this?
Yes.
Punch a button, route the Apple TV, and then it's plugged in through Ethernet, and we've got a really good Ubiquiti rig in here, so Wi-Fi's great everywhere in the building, and you just hit AirPlay and boom, routed. You can route it wherever you need it. So
I'll tell you this story because I think you're gonna see where I'm going really quick. So Red Rocks Church.
Yeah.
Actually, no. I apologize. My buddy who is at Red Rocks Church. It was Bayside in Florida.
Okay.
He used to work at Bayside. His pastor, spur of the moment, Sunday morning goes, I want to FaceTime my brother and put it up on screen.
Oh man.
And like live, like he wanted to live do it on stage, So he was like, he quickly thought, like, how do we make this happen? Mm-hmm. So he had an Apple TV hooked up to the system, AirPlayed to the Apple TV, but it's vertical.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And all the screens were, of course, horizontal. Mm-hmm. So what he did was quick whipped up a 16:9 graphic with a phone outline and then transparent over the screen.
That's cool.
And then
just
overlaid the feed.
Yeah.
Keyed in the screen.
That's cool.
And like it was amazing. Like
That's
truly.
awesome.
And then took a audio de-embedder out of the AirPlay so you can get the audio into the console.
That's some good quick thinking.
Right. I was like, that's cool.
That's
and people loved it.
That's cool.
So in case you get any last minute requests,
I'll file that. I'll put that in the filing cabinet up here.
Yeah. I love the Apple TV.
Yeah, it's really cool for stuff like this too, where you can it's AirPlay to whatever, and it just works.
Now, is there a official or unofficial policy that your staff has to all have Apple devices?
No, there's not. Most of us have Apple devices. So
it just makes sense.
Yeah, it just makes sense. Yeah, I mean, as most people do. Like some people have some people have on their staff have Android phones or like a Windows laptop or two. I mean, I've got a Windows laptop that I carry next to my MacBook that I'm talking to you on. So
no AirPlay for them.
No, not for them.
Not on the Apple TV.
No, not on that at least.
So you kind of talked about this a little bit of like I'm thinking, or I want to break down like production goals. Like
Sure.
What do you guys strive for every single Sunday? And you alluded to being able to clearly show the message while not being distracting. And I think that's of course the goal for everybody. Is there like a internal goal that you guys share that you're like, oh man, we want to hit this level of our Sunday production to like is there kind of an internal goal you guys have?
Yeah. I mean, it's not so much of a tangible quantitative measure. It's kind of more of like a culture thing, as cliche as this is going to sound. So fair warning. It's the we strive for excellence. Excellence is always intentional. And it's just paying attention to it's really just paying attention to little details, because we can all I can teach somebody in 5 minutes how to click around in ProPresenter, or I can teach somebody in 5 minutes how to click through our lighting cues, punch the buttons on the video switcher, punch the buttons on the panel. Like all the fundamental stuff is more or less pretty, except for maybe audio, but we'll leave that one aside because we hire a contractor for that. But more or less, I mean, the fundamental stuff is pretty cut and dry. It's the small details. It's the whole mindset of aim small, miss small. I mean, to the point where I kind of kicked myself for making the mistake I made last week of cutting him 2 words short, where in past worlds I've worked in where no one would give a crap about that. We're kind of in the kind of, I guess if I had to sum it up, I'd kind of be like aim small, miss small, right? You aim for a shirt, you'll miss by 2 feet. You aim for a shirt button, you'll miss by 1 inch, kind of deal. And so it's like just aiming for those smaller and smaller details. And obviously you're never going to make it perfect, but just always trying to improve in some way.
Yeah. Now, what do you and your team do to work on aiming small?
I think a lot of it is kind of just like, coaching and mentorship. And so I have a counterpart. His name is Alex. Actually, he works for Renewed Vision as well. He's So if you have presenter problems, yell at my buddy Alex.
He's the guy. He's the guy you go to. Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever I have a problem, Alex. And so anyway, but so he's kind of my counterpart. Between the two of us, one of us will produce the show, or one of us will produce and call the show. The other one will be kind of loose, kind of like, I guess, a firefighter effectively. Or a systems engineer, and then also kind of watch over and manage volunteers, and just kind of coach and mentor them. All of our volunteers have had some sort of like formal or informal training from like us, like we'll do like a little training session or whatever. And so we kind of play to their strengths. Like we find what they're good at, what they're comfortable with, where they're where they can do a good job effectively, and where and it's a comfortable and a good fit, and we kind of keep people in those positions. And so, as most people do, but just as far as just how we strive for excellence with them, it's just we run as a lot of places do, run a full service run through, and so we'll make notes and sit down and debrief and figure out what adjustments need to be made to make it seamless. And so I mean that's pretty much how we handle that. It's just just trying to focus on those small little details. And all of our volunteers are fantastic. They're a great bunch of hardworking folks, and they're all very sharp and very, very aware. And so they're also pretty good at finding the little detail oriented things. The best part is my one of my pro presenter operators that's one of my rock stars. She's actually an English teacher and has like an English major. So every time there's a spelling mistake, it's already fixed before she says anything.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's the perk of
that's handy.
Recruiting volunteers, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
And so we have a great bunch of folks.
So I'm curious when it comes to like campus review and run a show and like kind of everything other than the actual live production. Working with volunteers, do you find that they have the same level of buy-in that the tech staff have, or is there a level of like, they'll show up for a little bit of time, they'll do the service, of course, but then like they're out. Like how do you work with volunteers to make sure that like they're bought in, to make sure that they perform as best as they can despite being volunteers?
So I mean we really don't seek out volunteers. Really when we would like take somebody in and kind of get them and kind of bring them into the fold, it's usually because they've in some way, form, or fashion have expressed interest, and usually the people that express interest find this stuff fascinating and just really cool and enjoy working with it. And so we've had a couple of folks like you're talking about where it's like buy-in was kind of an issue and there was some stuff we had to address, but very few and far in between, because most of the people that come and want to serve here like really enjoy doing it. And we try to make it fun. We try to make it as least stressful as possible, to prevent task saturation, panic, chaos. And so we try to make it easy and fun, and a workflow that kind of more lends itself to more of a lay person that's not paid to do this week in and week out, where they can comfortably survive and run the show adequately. So I mean so we all of our folks are real bought into it, and they're very, very gracious to serve us with their time and their talents. And so I'm curious. Do you find, and this is totally subjective, do you think that volunteers come to you because they see the cameras around the stage, they see the IMAG, they see the control room, like they see you guys work, like, because you're not hidden, you're not invisible. I know some churches. Like right now, the guys in here would be hidden, but
sure. Like, I'm curious, because I'm kind of speaking for my own church, which we run a very uninvasive, like, if you're not looking for the camera crew, you don't see them. Like, so we don't actually have that many volunteers coming to us. Because they don't know it exists.
I guess it kind of depends on like, the culture and kind of like how your I guess how your service works, what they can see in the room, what they can't. I I don't know. I mean, I definitely was the person when I was little that was like, I want to play with buttons. I want to push faders and hit buttons and do stuff. Like my dad was career IT, so I was kind of a little nerd from day one. And so anyway, so I was pushing buttons and sliding faders, as soon as they would let me. And so, but that's kind of how I came into the fold, and how I wound up kind of getting into this career. And I definitely have seen a lot of guys, a lot of younger guys and girls that have come into like specifically like our youth department. That's kind of like, we'll start introducing them to that stuff if they're interested, like when they're up in youth and stuff like that. But I definitely have at least 4 or 5 volunteers that were like you were saying, that were like, that seems cool. I want to try that. And they think it's the coolest thing ever. And I mean, I think it's the coolest thing ever. I mean, it's what I do for a living.
That's right. So, same here.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same idea. And so yeah, we definitely have a couple of those.
Okay.
We don't have any like roamers or any talking about like uninvasive. We don't have any like roamers or anything yet. The Milner we do, but we'll probably have some of that at some point. Right now we have a bunch of Marshall cameras and three man cameras. So
okay. Shifting gears a little bit,
sure.
I want to talk about horror stories
because everyone
and yeah, I mean I know you've shared, like, we all have monkey brain every once in a while, but like, I want to talk about the most catastrophic meltdown that you've personally been a part of. Not necessarily your fault. I mean, maybe it is. I mean, you didn't get all 5 questions of the streaming quiz. So,
I'm liable to have done it. Yeah,
that's right. No. but yeah. What's the worst horror story that you've experienced?
I was thinking about this earlier because you had mentioned that we might talk about horror stories prior, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm gonna look so lame because, to be honest with you, I can't remember any like really bad ones. Like, I know so many other people that have some awesome ones. I think the best one that I can think of is I was actually I wasn't working for a church. I was touring for a Christian contemporary artist, and I was at the time I was the LD, and between me and my A1, we were production lead for we're kind of like co-PMing this, more or less, more him than me, but to a certain point, and so we're in the doors are at 6, shows at 7. It's like I think it's like 7:00, right? It's like fire tracks arm the console to chase time code, and tracks fire, and then the console does nothing, and the big time code clock is red because nothing's happening, and we're like, because the entire show is time coded coming from tracks, right?
Oh yeah.
And Tyler's looking over at me like, come on, man, come on. And I'm like, checking the, like, what's going on over there? And I'm like checking the time code going into the back of the console. Then I'm like, then I'm trying to rearm it. And at the same time, I'm also having to hand fire the intro because it had some, it was one of his radio songs, the guy that we were with, but it was one of his radio songs. But we had built this little tour intro to start the show. And so it had a bunch of cool little lighting elements to it, but it had a whole bunch of cues. And luckily I had actually practiced hand punching the show. Well, we get to and Tyler needed time code for something too. So we get to like a verse or a chorus or something. We get to like a verse or a chorus or something, and so me and Tyler, both of us, we got to where we could leave our consoles for a second. We scream up the stage, and both of us are like tiptoeing behind the drums over to the tracks rig, and we're sitting there playing with and nobody's at front of house. Me and him are on stage, and we're sitting there playing with the tracks rig. It was a bad output, so we managed with somehow, like us, like crawling like little 2-year-olds on stage to like over the thing. We managed to repatch time code to a different output. Then we noticed that an opener had left I don't know how we didn't notice this before. We didn't notice the chaos, but the opener had left their big old keyboard stand like right downstage left. So then we're already on stage, and Tyler's like, we gotta move this. So we go over there. So we're just on stage in front of God and everybody. Dude's over singing, and we're just picking up. No, don't mind us, right in the middle of the intro. And then and then once we got off stage, the mad dash back to front of house, we definitely had a couple people looking at us funny.
Oh my gosh, dude. One, you only have two people in front of house.
Yeah, well, it was a little CCM tour. It wasn't. It was our front of house was a couple of road cases.
Oh, okay. I mean, well, yeah. I work with what you have, of course.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that would be so stressful.
That was pretty funny. We laughed at that one later. See, and then all the other ones aren't all that fun. Like somebody, like, you know, like I said, front of house is a couple of road cases, right? So before we got smart and ran power from stage off of the PD to front of house, we would use like house power, like just run a quad box to, you know, outlet and like back of house or whatever. Somebody walking by kick the cable and the front of house goes down in the middle of the show. That's happened a few times.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I can't think of any. I'm trying to think if I got any other funny ones. Okay, this one didn't happen to. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I'm impressed that you were prepared enough to at least manually fire.
Yeah.
Like while the time code wasn't working.
Yeah.
Like I'm impressed. Well, right, and I mean that's a word of advice to anybody watching this is like, yes, you have everything automated. Yes, it should work. But just in case.
Oh yeah.
Just in case.
Oh yeah.
Maybe have a backup plan. Do a little practice. If things don't work, if the time code, you know, doesn't work for some reason or whatever doesn't work.
You got to be prepared to hand fire it.
Yep.
Or manually do whatever, whether it be like fader automation or, you know, all that stuff.
But that is a testament as well, the fact that you guys knew your system so well that in the heat of the moment, middle of a performance, you're tiptoeing behind the drum set and everything, and you identify, oh, this output is bad, and then you rerouted it, and then knew exactly how to, like, you know, rush back to the front of house. And the fact that you knew your system that well is impressive.
Well, thank you. I'm pretty sure that we knew. I'm pretty sure we already were suspecting it was a bad. This was years ago. So my memory is a little fuzzy. I'm pretty sure that interface was already sus because I think we had a couple outputs go bad before and we just moved them somewhere to another. We weren't using all the outputs, so we would just repatch it to the next one on the line or whatever.
Sure.
And so I think we kind of suspected that already, and then like we moved it over and then saw time code was now running, and we were like, oh, okay, that was it.
Yeah. Time to get a new patch.
Yeah, and then we're running off stage, and then we see the stinking keyboard, and we're like, oh.
Yoink. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it was so loud too. I remember him screaming bags, and I'm like, what? And he was like, we gotta get this keyboard.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You're being so discreet as like walking, but then you're screaming at each other.
Yeah, and everybody's on stage. Like, I mean, we're in the middle of a song.
Oh yeah. Right.
Yep. So.
Oh yeah.
That was funny. Well, it wasn't funny at the time. It's funny now.
Well, 100%. Oh, 100%, dude. Yeah, I
want to hear his horror story. What do you got?
Yeah. So I'm blessed that this is the worst horror story that I've had, and I'm actually gonna throw it back to college.
Okay.
This is college Christian in production life.
Okay.
Worked for our like student union building, and ran production, and basically, this was like a Saturday night. So, you know, my boss, the grown-ups, they're out. They're not working. So it's literally just students running the production. So there was an event. It was like a fashion show of sorts. They wanted the big building, and basically when you request the room, you say everything that you need. And they wrote down wireless handheld mic.
Okay.
Which we had a whole kind of rack system.
Sure.
Just, you know, plug and play, easy for anybody. So they brought me on, and I had one other person with me, and so it was the two of us. We show up, and they go, "Oh, we need a huge list of things," and I'm like, "What? Dear. This is not on the request list, you know?" Right. And then they see in our front of house was actually like on a balcony. And there was a spotlight. They saw the spotlight and they're like, we need the spotlight for the fashion show. Because they had like a catwalk and everything.
Right.
You know, right. Yeah, obviously. Makes sense.
Right. And you're like, not
so
on the list.
my friend, the only other crew member, she was manning the spotlight. And she couldn't, and you know, so that was a full-time thing for her.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, what are y'all doing? And they go, well, we have a DJ coming in and a band coming in. I'm like, a band?
A band?
What? Yeah, right. So I quick, and this is the people pleaser in me. I'm
Yeah,
like,
I
all
understand
right.
that. I did the same
even
thing.
even though they didn't request it,
Right.
I'm gonna make it happen.
Yeah.
I just run and get some mics, get our snake, get our monitor speakers, and I don't do anything crazy.
But just having to do
know,
that last minute,
the
like,
DI
it's
boxes,
the worst.
yeah, right.
It's the worst.
So I get that set up, and then the DJ came in, and I was like, what do you need from me, man? He goes, just access to the speakers. I said, great, here you go.
Here you go. Yep.
No problem, right?
Right.
Well, this is my theory. Basically, it wasn't loud enough. like people were displeased that it was not loud.
Okay.
And on the house end, on our console, we're hitting Unity.
Oh.
We're hitting Unity, and
so you're out of headroom.
I'm out of headroom.
Right.
out of headroom. Yes.
Right.
And so I'm trying to push it further, and it's just not. Like, I could technically go further past Unity, but then
you don't want to
we got reverb, right.
Yeah.
Well, we got feedback with the way that the mics were placed and stuff. It wasn't good.
Right.
I suspect that the DJ wasn't giving me as hot of a signal.
Probably not. Yeah.
Right. But again, the DJ's like on the opposite
stage.
of the room.
Right.
Right. I'm in the balcony at front of house.
Right.
And so, and then I don't know if this was part of the DJ crew or just some dude. He's like standing in back of house with us, and I'm just like so locked in. Like I'm like doing everything.
Right.
Oh, and the mic's cut out at some point, so I had to run up and, fix the antennas, attempt to just shift the antennas to get better, dual diversity. Oh my God.
That's the worst feeling when you start having mics dropping out and then everybody's looking up at like.
Oh, and then people started like the organizers started like complaining to me, like, we pay good money for this. I'm like,
oh,
I'm trying here. But it wasn't loud enough, and people were kind of complaining.
Yeah.
So this random dude in front of house, he sees the master fader at Unity, and he just pushes it up.
Oh.
And I look as he does it, and this is like a slow motion moment for me.
Right.
I just like look as he pushes it up, and then you just hear whoa, massive feedback. I move it back down. I look at him and I go, please don't touch that.
Oh man.
In 2 seconds, he was gone. He immediately left, and I'm like,
that reminds me of sorry,
we made it work.
Good. That always sucks though. That reminds me back when I used to tour and stuff, and I as an LD, everybody would be like, that's too loud. They not knowing which console was which, right? Half the time the people want, come and asking if we could make it not so loud or turn it down or whatever. It's usually like older folks or whatever.
Sure.
So they would walk up to me. I'm the lighting guy. They would say, "Hey, it's too loud. Can you turn that down a little bit?" I'd just be like, "Sure, I'll get right on that." I just grab an empty fader and just move it. Like, is that better? Yeah. Thank you very much. They have no idea I'm on the lighting console.
Have you seen the memes? I've seen some reels on Insta of an audio engineer working with a band, and they're like, oh yeah, can you adjust the kick? And he literally he holds his hand up like this so that the drummer can see his hand moving, but he physically doesn't touch the fader.
Yeah. He just puts his finger on the fader path and just does that.
Yeah. Is that good? Yeah. That sounds better.
Much better. I can't. It sounds funny, but I can't tell you how many times like somebody's asked me for like some stupid change like that in like ears or in something else, and either one I hadn't made the adjustment yet, and I was like working on getting to the mix and doing that, or two, there was just nothing I could do about it, and I just hey, is that any better? After I did literally nothing, or like I haven't even made the change yet, and they're like, that's much better, thank you, and I'm just like, all right, I'm not even touching anything.
Yep. I think it's just a level of like people want to have input.
Yeah, for sure.
They want to feel like they're in complete control.
Yeah.
Which like sure if they're good, and respect here, like if you're gonna be on stage performing you want to feel the most confident.
Absolutely.
And you want to, you know, feel dialed in.
Sure, I don't want them to be unprepared, but there's sometimes where it's like, hey, I need more click track, and I open the mix up, and the mix is already at, you know, at plus 10, and I'm like, how's that? Oh, it's better.
Yeah.
Oh man. Everybody, at least most of my crew likes to, you know, blow their ears out with the click.
Really? They like the click in there.
I mean,
like
I can't.
A very loud click.
Yeah, I mean, I can't talk. I do the same thing.
Sure.
I always peg the click, man. I'm like I've blown up so many pairs of ears.
Probably really? Just because of the click?
Yeah, probably gonna go deaf in my 30s. We'll find out.
Oh man. So I guess, you know, horror stories and stuff like that. What advice would you give to someone on a production team that, you know, a lesson that you learned the hard way that they can, you know, preemptively avoid? What piece of advice would you give?
That's a good one. There's a couple things I could say. I would say probably the biggest thing to avoid making mistakes is, especially I'm kind of speaking more from like a service producer or like a director, you know, kind of calling the show. But this could be applicable to anybody on the team. Is always think 3 steps ahead of where you are right now. Like we might be in the middle of song 1, right? And we've got a welcome spot. It's got a video that's going to play halfway through, and then it's going to throw it back to the, you know, pastor on stage. I'm thinking about all of that stuff and queuing up the transition where we're in the bridge of the song before it. And so I'll start calling transitions and being like, all right, guys, we've got this coming up, and that's 3 steps ahead. And so, but you know, as I'm saying it, I'm thinking about what's coming after that. And so just don't accidentally just, you know, try not to accidentally just like doze off, or not doze off, but like just, you know,
like kind of be in the moment. Always be thinking ahead.
That's a mistake I've made so many times. Is like, you know, like, oh, I'm like get distracted and I'm like watching the drummer, or I'm like really like digging the song or digging the moment, and then we get to the end of the thing, I'm like, oh crap. And so, you know, always think. And the thing is that if you goof that up as a director or a producer, everybody downstream of you also gets kind of their foot in the mud too. And so I think the biggest thing to just avoid stuff like that is always be thinking 3 steps ahead of where you are now.
Yeah.
Making sure you're prepared to
agree.
move seamlessly through the production.
As the director, 100%.
Yeah. But I mean, that could be applicable to
anybody
like,
on production.
Yeah, like lighting. Like I know I've got these hits in this bridge. I need to make sure I, you know, remember, you know, listen for my cue, or even stage managers. I mean, video, CG, camera operators, anybody. And so, just think. Don't get too caught up in the moment. Start, you know, think ahead. Right. Like I always keep Planning Center like in a physical copy of Planning Center in my view somewhere, because, you know, I spent all week preparing for this, and yet I still can't remember in what order everything is on Sunday. And so, you know, that's also another thing, is we always have physical copies at each workstation somewhere visible, so we all stay on track.
Yeah, big font, or big enough font, you know, that you can quickly read it from a glance.
What's just big enough,
Yeah. I mean, I think that even extends to camera ops.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like
they have to figure out what their next shot is and how to get there without
I learned this maybe not the hard way, but I learned this doing live sports. We had a replay operator who was very old school.
Okay.
Bit more of a grumpy old man type persona.
I know the type.
Right. And I was operating camera, and it was like high school football warm-ups. So he was getting clips for a highlight reel that they were going to show 20 minutes later.
Okay.
Right. So he's recording all camera feeds, ISO feeds.
Right.
So he is like in our ears, like always hunt for shots. Like you see a shot, follow it. You know, someone's running, follow it.
Yeah, because everything's going to ISOs.
Next shot. Yeah, like if he saw on the multi-view that you were just kind of sitting there, like not getting a shot, he would be like, more shots. Like he would get really angry. Like I was like, oh, okay, you know. But yeah, when you're not live, find a different shot.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
Give the director,
give your director something.
Options.
Yeah. Well, and in the way that I direct, and well, in this context, in that context, that's probably more appropriate, especially if you've got a lot of cameras or a lot more cameras. In kind of the worship kind of like church context, the way I direct and the way that I train my directors is like I don't want, because we have volunteers. We don't necessarily have professional camera operators. Now, some of them are awesome, and they could legitimately be a professional camera operator. But here they're all volunteers. So my thing for them is I teach them to think of that, and I teach them to think of think through those transitions. Like, okay, camera, we're going into a welcome spot. Camera one's on the worship leader. All right, we're sticking with 1, 2, stand by 2, frame up Noah, for frame up campus pastor coming on the stage. Y'all be seated. The campus pastor comes up. Take 2. All right, welcome. Good morning. Welcome to Rock Springs, kind of deal. And so, like, thinking and over communicating. Like, I was like, you can't, like, these guys are not going to talk to you back. Like, you cannot. Well, I mean, they can, but they really don't because their hands are on the sticks.
Right.
But like over communicate to them. That way, they're confident in what they're doing is right. And and so we don't really do as much hunting for shots as much as we do, kind of. Just making it easy, right? That way, really all they got to do is just, camera ops is just, that's the best spot for me to put like a new volunteer, because all I got to do is show them, okay, pan drag, tilt drag, length controller, zoom in, zoom out,
and here's your shot.
Yeah,
here's your shot.
Here's your screen. Here's your focus. Listen to the director. That's all you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's actually really smart. That's a good tip for volunteers. Yeah.
Keep
it simple for them. Build up their confidence, and then if they get really confident and really they nail it down pretty quickly, then give them the more complex camera shots.
Exactly. And like that's usually where I'll start out, like new volunteers too, because that's like the easiest thing to throw in there. Because the other thing too is like if they goof up, the director doesn't have to take the shot, or if they goof up, there's usually somebody else that has a bailout or something, so they can quickly cut away from it. And so it's you're talking about mistakes that some mistakes cost us more, some cost us less. That is a very low cost, so I don't mind there being mistakes in there, especially if it's somebody new that's kind of getting to know how to do it too. So that's been a really good kind of pipeline to getting folks trained, is just to start them with the cameras.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. I like that.
Thank you.
Let's talk infrastructure.
Okay. Been working a lot with that this week.
We're talking, yeah, right, with your 40 by 40. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're talking cameras. Mm-hmm. So I take it, well, especially with the 40 by 40, you're running SDI. You bought $500 worth of BNC connectors.
Those things are $4 a piece now.
Sure are,
dude. These tariffs and all, everything's expensive.
Yeah. Did you get you get Canaries, Beldens, Kings? What are you rocking?
They're the. I thought I had one sitting here. They're just the Belden compression connectors. I like the double bubble ones, but honestly, the Belden, and then I use. Please don't hang me for this. I've used a lot of RG6 because it's cheap and available, and I'm not going all that far. And so RG6 and Belden,
Like let me just clarify before I hang you out to dry.
Oh gosh.
You're picking it up from Home Depot?
No, I get it from the supply house.
Okay.
I might have picked one or two up from Home Depot when the supply house was out.
Listen, man. If it's not mission critical and it's a short run.
Yeah. Well, most of them are pretty short runs, but yes, there are definitely some Lowe's and Home Depot or BNCs or the SDI cables in this building. But anyway, sorry. And I really like the Belden compression connectors, because you can just, seriously, I had to make up like 40 patch cables and I had to make up 40 patch cables, and I managed to do it in 30 minutes, whereas you try to do the same thing with Cat 6, it takes you the same amount of time to make 4.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Cat 6 is.
But I really like those connectors because it's so quick. It's just strip, pull it off, pull the little fillies back down, shove it on, crimp.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Easy.
yeah. No, compression is definitely my favorite.
Yes.
I mean, obviously you got to do what you got to do, but
Yes, yeah.
So you guys are rocking an SDI workflow, SDI infrastructure.
Yeah, for sure.
You just tell me about your 40x40, your new 40x40 router, which I'm very excited for you. It's amazing.
So much better. It's already been so much better.
So yeah, what tips do you have for people who are like we're talking productions who are smaller? You know, they're running HDMI. They typically have like a Blackmagic A10 Mini, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe the extreme version, but they're running HDMI, but they're taking that next step. Say they got to do longer cable runs, or they're just revamping altogether. SDI is the next best solution. Like that's the best way to upgrade.
And the SDI switchers, the entry level ones aren't that much more expensive than like a modestly kitted out like ADA Mini.
Yeah, right. I mean, yes, SDI is going to be more expensive because it is more professional.
Yeah, the buy-in is a bit more expensive at first. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what
not,
advice?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. What advice would you have for somebody who is taking that jump from HDMI into SDI?
So my advice would be if you're looking to get into SDI gear, don't swing for the fences. You can find you don't need 30 inputs. You don't need all these aux outs. Like get something, get something reasonable. Like say, like the whatever the 1ME, whatever the little 1ME, or even there's one under that are around. I think they're like around, or maybe even they're around the $1,000 give or take a little bit price point.
Oh, like the Blackmagic A10 SDI, like the extreme.
Or like the 1ME, like I used to have. I think it's a 1ME Production Studio 4K or whatever, but that one was in the $1,000 price range, or even some of the ADA Minis with SDI capability. Like even those are a good choice for like a small shop too, but. Going SDI gives you a lot more. It gives you a lot more flexibility. I mean, like you and me both know. You ever bought a 50-foot HDMI cord off Amazon? They only work about half the time.
Yep.
And so
you've already hit your max.
Yeah. And so you can't make your own cables. You can't extend it. Also, I've definitely been the guy that's had 13 USB-C to HDMI dongles coming out the back of my main Pro Presenter machine. But the thing that I didn't realize at the time, though, is that most switchers don't have scalers on the inputs. Thank God we have a Blackmagic Constellation 2ME now back in the back that's patched 1-to-1 into that router, so I don't have to deal with that anymore. Thank the Lord. But that's exceptionally rare. Most switchers do not. SDI switchers do not have scalers on the inputs, meaning that
I was gonna say let's break down scalar for. So if someone's taking that jump, they probably don't know what the scalar means.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so I was about to mention that. So basically a scalar scales resolution and or frame rate or both. So say I have a laptop that's outputting 1920 by 1080 at 29.97 frames per second, right? Now, you have what's called a broadcast standard. That just means the resolution and the frame rate that your switcher is using, right? It's what it wants to see input, and that's what it's outputting. So my switcher was, the broadcast standard was 1080i at 1920 by 1080i at 59.94 frames per second. So you plug it in, and you use a normal like microconverter, HDMI to a microconverter, and then into the switcher, and the input one, nothing happens. Why did nothing happen? Because it's not getting what it expects. And so then what you have to do is you have to buy something like a Decimator MDHX. It's this little red box that's got a scaler built into it that can change. Basically make it.
I got one right here.
Look at that! Hey, look at that!
I conveniently had this right by my desk.
I was about to say, I got a
Decimator.
If I could reach that rack, there's like 4 back there.
Oh, these are amazing.
Oh my gosh!
These are amazing.
I keep one. I never go anywhere without one in my backpack.
But
they're expensive.
If you don't need to use it, well, they're expensive, right?
Yeah.
And they're patch kits or they're patch tools.
Yes, they are.
Actually, let me clarify by patch tool, because that also could mean different things.
Yeah.
This is an emergency, like, I need to scale, I need to convert.
Mm-hmm.
The Decimator can do it very well because you can control how it does that through the software and whatnot.
It's awesome.
But like the microconverters,
They
The
don't do that.
microconverters, it's just a copper conversion. There's no touching of the signal. There's no scaling. There's none of that. So, yeah, I mean, these are amazing, and you definitely should have some in your bag.
Mini converter, not a microconverter, but mini converter.
Oh, is that AJA?
No, this is Blackmagic. This is a HDMI to SDI mini converter with, I think, like a D embed. I think it's got a D embed built in.
Oh, I see.
For audio.
I see. The micro converters.
The micros are the tiny ones. Yeah.
I have.
Oh wait,
some.
hold on, I got one. There we go.
Let's play the game. Let's play the game. Who has equipment within arm's reach of their desk?
I was about to say.
I have a decimator. You got a micro
I have a
converter.
microconverter. I have a decimator power supply. Ha, gotcha.
Perfect. Let's just put the two together.
Here, plug it in real quick. Here, reach over here.
Perfect. There we go.
There you go.
Oh my gosh, we need to stop. Let's move on.
Okay. Oh shoot. Maybe I should not do that. But anyway, sorry. Anyway, so scalers. So that's a scaler. But the thing is those are expensive. Tell them how much one of those costs.
Oh, a decimator? I mean, you're looking at $500.
Yeah, that's like a $400-$500 piece of gear, and you're going to have one of those for each of your inputs if your device can't natively speak the switcher's language, so to say.
Right.
So
right.
You're asking about kind of advice in getting into SDI. The thing I would recommend, and the thing I wish I had done when I was moving to an SDI workflow, was don't use the HDMI outs off of your machines, like your ProPresenter machine, your PVP machine, if you run PVP, or whatever your CG, computer graphics stuff is. If you've got laptops plugged in, you got a iMac with ProPresenter, whatever your input sources are.
Just like that HDMI out of the laptop,
yes,
or USB-C to HDMI converter dongle. Don't use those.
Yeah, don't do that. There's a better way. Blackmagic also sells these nice devices called DeckLink cards, and sometimes they're little all-in-one USB, like USB or Thunderbolt, and it's got HDMI on it. Or what we do the most is we buy the physical computer PCIe card and put it in a little enclosure that plugs conveniently into your laptop or iMac or whatever you're using, and it usually has 4 to 5 SDI outs on the back.
I got one.
Hey!
Well, this is not a DeckLink card. This is just a standalone converter. But Thunderbolt to this is a monitor, so this is an output over SDI or HDMI.
Yes,
whichever you choose.
And so
but yeah,
invest in those rather than because those, and you can go into Blackmagic Desktop Video and you can set whatever you can set whatever sort of whatever flavor of broadcast standard you have. You could, if you got the 8K Pro, you can go all the way up to 8K 120 frames per second or something crazy like that, which I don't know who would ever use that, but you can output whatever you need, eliminating the need for that $500 decimator for each of your inputs. And so we started using those here, and I'm like, where has this been all my life? Now all I got now all I got to do is go to Lowe's and get my cheap Lowe's cable and throw some connectors on it, and we're good to go.
We're going to cancel this interview because that's illegal.
I messed this up already.
No, I fully agree. Like the Blackmagic DeckLink 8K DeckLink, it has 4 SDI in or out. You can choose whether it's an input or output, which is nice. 4 4K rated feeds, and that to me is just the ultimate flexibility, because even if you're running 1080, you can set it, like you said, in the software. You can set each port, each BNC port, to 1080, to whatever frame rate you want, to 4K.
Yeah, you can't do that. You can't do that on your HDMI out on the laptop or on a computer.
Right. And I mean, even this little Blackmagic device, the Ultra Studio Monitor 3G.
Yeah.
It's only output, and it's only 1080 60.
Yeah, but that gives you SDI.
Correct. I mean, this is good. I mean, if I'm running a 1080 SDI system, this works great.
And it costs less than a decimator.
Correct. But if we're talking like let's just do brass tacks here.
Okay.
A decimator's 500.
Yes.
This little guy, I think they sell this for 130.
Something like that.
So like obviously cheaper, but if you want to invest in the DeckLink 8K, which gives you four BNCs, which BNCs are the ends on SDI cable for confusion.
You don't even have to
if
go
there's any
Decklink
confusion
8K.
there.
You could go Decklink Duo. That's the one we have the most of around here, and they're half the price of an 8K, I'm pretty sure, or roundabout.
Now, but that only caps out at 1080, right?
I can't remember, but most shops are going to be running 1080 is pretty popular. So like most shops are going to be running 1080. So if you wanted the 4K, but most people using Resi are using 1080. I think that's fair to say, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, 100%.
Yeah.
That's been the standard. We are seeing the uptick in 4K for sure.
But
so
it's not like industry standard. That's why I said that. Yeah. So like if you're looking, especially if you're just getting into it, like you're not going to want an 8K. You're going to want, basically the Decklink Duo is the same thing he just described with the 8K, but it's got 4 in-outs and then a reference. So yeah, it's got 5 BNC connectors on there, and it's same thing, but it costs about half the price.
True. Although I'm going to make the argument here, like keeping that person that production that's kind of jumping up from entry level HDMI into a more serious production.
Sure.
It's 2025.
I
would make the argument future proof.
Yeah.
Because
that's not a bad point.
Because like the Decklink card, the 8K, which I say it's called the 8K.
It's called the 8K
for 4Ks. Yeah. That only goes for $700.
I'll tell you. They're not astronomically expensive. It definitely costs less than 2 decimators.
Well, that's exactly right. Right. You get a decimator, a couple decimators, and you're already over that cost. So so
I've got
you get
$2,000 worth of decimators back there. That's only 4 inputs.
Right. So like 4K is going to be more expensive than 1080, but the gap isn't as big as it used to be.
No.
So I'd go for it. Like because you can still do 1080, and then you have headroom to go 4K in the future.
Absolutely. That's not a bad point. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's not a bad idea, especially when they're only $825 right now on B&H for a Blackmagic Design Decklink 8K Pro.
Right. If it were 5 years ago, I'd say don't even bother with 4K streaming.
Yeah.
But no, it's.
I think that's a good point. You're right. It is 2025, and you're gonna want to think smarter about how you equip your stuff to future proof it for sure.
Right.
Or maybe not think smarter, but think ahead.
Well, right, and hey, we're gonna tie this back to your piece of advice of always be thinking ahead.
Yeah, there you
in
go.
That moment, right?
Didn't even catch that.
Like always, because it's also going to be more expensive to invest in 1080 now, and then in 3 years,
have to go and turn that
let's
gear
do 4K
around again. Yeah. That's
exactly.
True. Hey, you caught me lacking. I wasn't thinking ahead.
Shh, I got first Lowe's SDI cable. Now this
2 strikes. I got one more. I got one more, and I'm done.
I don't know about you, Bags.
Oh
man. So let's talk about your camera rigs, because you mentioned to me prior that you have a pretty banging setup. You have a camera rig that you are very proud of. So let's break it down for me. Okay,
I can't take all the credit for this because my boss Kevin Ward, he's the technical director for Rock Springs Church, like proper. I'm the technical director for the Macon campus. This was totally Kevin's idea. This is his baby, but it's an awesome little rig. So, a lot of, like, we're talking about people kind of entry level, kind of just getting into the game, right? Most of them are probably not going to have like roaming wireless cameras or like all the fancy stuff you see all the bigger churches doing. It's mostly going to be like man cameras, tripods, and all that. What I was going to propose is an easy, easy on your wallet way to kind of maybe introduce a roamer or some like a roaming operator on your stage, kind of around the house. Yeah. A little more flexibility, more creative angles. So I'm sure you've heard of this, but I hadn't heard about this I heard about it a few years ago, but they just released a new model, is the Blackmagic micro broadcast camera. Have you ever messed with those? Yeah. Personally, I have not, but I mean, little tiny box cameras, BNC out. I think it's a micro BNC. Yeah, it's the micro one. Yeah, which you can get adapters for to regular SDI cable. Absolutely. BNC. But so I'm familiar with them. Interchangeable lens. Yes, they do. So I forget what mount it has on it, but it's got the same. Is it micro 4/3? I think it's micro 4/3 because the Panasonic. The Lumix. The Lumix GH5, GH6. Yeah, and you know how some of the Lumix lenses they have that have powered zoom and focus in the DSLR lens.
Yes.
So we have, and it's tiny. It's got a little small rig cage on it. I'll send you some pictures, and I'll get you some video of it, and you can show them. But it's got this little bitty tiny small rig cage on it. Very very minimalistic. It's got the box camera in there, and then it's got a little bitty Lumix zoom lens on it, and so you can reach down and just quickly zoom in, like just zoom in and out with motorized zoom,
like
and
power
zoom.
Yes,
Yeah. So you can do that. I think
Yeah.
Kevin even added a thumb switch for that. I'm not sure if, don't quote me on that. I'm not sure if he did or not, but you could add a little thumb switch for it that you can zoom it in and out, so you don't have to take your hands off the rig. It's got a little screen on top, and then a little, I think it's like Hollyland or Teradek wireless. But the camera, cheap. That lens, cheap. Probably the most expensive thing on there is honestly probably the wireless. But you don't even have to go wireless. You could have a grip and just run a hardline to it.
Sure.
Actually, two of them up in Milner, I think two of them actually are on a hard line, rather than being wireless. And so, but that's like an easy, sub $1,500 ish, depending on how you kit it out, way to add a new add some some new color into your broadcast. There's so much more capability you can have with that now. Moving shots, still shots, like, little macro shots, going, walking around, getting the keyboard player during worship, playing on the keys. There's all sorts of potential, because now you're not stuck to a tripod anymore, and you have and it looks great too. The new G2 model looks awesome. And so there's a lot of capability there for not a lot of money. So that, take it for what it's worth. It might help you out.
Yeah. Well, I think also the weight. Thing.
That's the other thing, and it doesn't look like this. It's not like an E&G camera where you got this guy, or like a big old steady cam,
the big
right?
Shoulder.
Yeah. Like you can take like a what do you call that? It's like a Cine.
Oh, the Cine saddle?
The Cine saddle, yes, the Cine saddle, yeah.
So it's like a little bag you'd like wear like a purse and just like rest the camera on.
You kind of put it under your arm or whatever, kind of what works for you. And you can get Cine saddle, because it does not have any stabilization, so you do got to be you got to take it easy with it. But you can even use a pillow. You can use a black pillow, stick it under your arm, hold that, and and now all of a sudden you've got a little bitty compact rig. You don't look like a dork with an E&G camera over your arms or over your shoulder on stage looking at the keyboard player, and they look great.
Huh. So I like that. Yeah, I know at Red Rocks they use Red Komodo X's.
Oh yeah, those are nice too.
And of course, and the opposite of cheap.
No, yes, they are the opposite of cheap, but they are pretty compact.
Great. They are, but once you add the monitor, the handle, they are actually pretty heavy.
Big. Yeah, and they're really taxing to hold for a while. I know exactly what you mean.
And I've heard that volunteers are like, "Oh, I don't like this," and they have easy rigs. Right, but then you've got to strap on the giant backpack.
Yeah, and you got the big old we call them we call them scorps. That's what we kind of
scorps.
Yeah, because they look like a scorpion.
That's exactly it.
Yeah,
yep, 100%. You're just.
But it's funny you mentioned that, because that's the exact reason that we're trying to phase out like our like Ursa 4Ks and our Ursa broadcast 4Ks, and then our 4.6Ks and our like C200s and stuff, because by the time they're rigged up, you need an easy rig or you're not going to have a fun time. And again, a volunteer is not going to want to hold a 10-15 pound rig for the entire time. So this is tiny and compact, no need for an easy rig, and it looks great, and it's not that expensive.
Yeah. So okay, maybe this is for another conversation, because I've seen a lot of churches use Blackmagic in their ecosystem, right? Switchers, cameras. Blackmagic has communication between them, so you get tally lights, you get color control, iris control, all right, and the price is typically right. However, what I've seen, and there's a general sentiment, is that Blackmagic cameras can look really good, but they're sometimes really hard to make look good despite the price. Whereas you compare a Canon, a Sony, Canon and Sony particularly, they're really just good out of the box.
Right. Yeah.
So, and we can make another video on this and break it down, but and maybe we do, so we can actually see your exact workflow. But
sure.
For a quick hit, what advice would you give the church that's running Blackmagic infrastructure, cameras and switcher, to make that image look really good?
I I don't know if I necessarily have any great advice on how to do that. I think it would be more of a, you know, always white balance your stuff. Always check your exposure. Check your exposure. And your white balance and all your settings and all that before anybody gets on stage. Go tell your buddy to get up there. If you got shaders, go ahead and play with your shaders or open up the shader window in ATEM control and just get it to look as right as you possibly can before anybody gets on stage. And then also don't forget to check your other shots. That's the thing I think a lot of people forget is they'll get like their main two cameras looking good and then their Marshall cameras or whatever on stage is like it's completely blown out. And I've made that mistake.
Sure.
One thing I've also noticed is like we had like an Ursa broadcast 4.6K go down, and it was we have two static they're split center camera shots in the back of the room up at Milner, and same here actually. And one of them was an Ursa 4.6, or they're both Ursa 4.6Ks. One of them died, and so we had to send it in for service. And so we went ahead and bought another camera, but they didn't have any of those in stock. So we got the new 12K model. And popped it in. Yeah, and they're really cool actually. And popped the new 12K model in there, which is also it's a lot of camera for a good price. The thing is we couldn't get them. Like I said, they're split center, so like they could zoom in about to the same level and have like the same shot. So you want the two to look consistent, right? We could not get that 12.6, or we could not get that 12K to look like the 4.6. And so eventually what we resorted to doing, if anybody else has this problem, what we resorted to doing is we took some video from the 4.6 and then took some video from the 12K and went and just, somebody went just in post somewhere and, looked at them and then actually created and exported a LUT file to make the 12K look like the 4.6 and then just installed the LUT on the camera. So, well, and I think you can also do that with
output the LUT.
Yeah.
Over SDI into the switcher. So then on the ATEM on your Constellation, you're not touching camera control. Like you're not shading.
No, we were, but we could not. For some reason, we could not nail it, and so somebody went and so we went and zeroed all that out, and then installed that LUT on the camera, so it outputted that.
So it's perfect, and you don't touch it.
Yes.
Like you don't touch the shading now because you.
If you got, you could touch the shading, like if you need a little bit of gain, you can tweaks, yes, but like it's like the starting point's there, like it's already
right.
Yeah, right. They look consistent now. That's one thing I've had issues with them. It's just like inconsistent, even in between the same models. Like we've bought like a batch of 4.6s before, and like it had it where the sensors. I guess there's something up with the sensors, like you could have them at the exact same settings across the board in the side by side looking at the same thing, and they look different to where you've got to like gain up one more than the other, or you've got to bracket this on this one but not on this one, even though it's the same camera with the same lens. So that's another interesting thing I've noticed with Blackmagic. I don't know if anybody else has seen that before, but it's happened to me.
Huh. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's a level of quality control that is.
I don't know.
I don't know. Right.
They're not bad cameras. I've just seen that.
Oh no, they are phenomenal. They truly
are.
And like Blackmagic is just pushed the space
and
really brought a lot of professional features to that prosumer level, which is incredible.
It's so nice to have a Blackmagic, sort of like what Uli Behringer did with the Behringer and the Music Tribe Company. I mean, just bringing that capability, making that capability accessible, and so it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll just throw this out there.
Okay.
Anything you wanna say about Resi? So I want to know, how does Resi make you feel? How can we do better to make you feel more at ease in your production? Just real time feedback.
Okay. First off, I love Resi. I've been using it since it was Living as One. I have a Living as One. Like I told you at Philo, I have a Living as One Ray encoder still. That still has all the old print and branding on it. So I've been using it for a long time. It's just the way to go. I mean, when I first found out about it, I'm like, what have I been missing? I mean, because literally you don't have to touch anything. All you got to do is go in there and schedule your stuff. I mean, you may go in there and change like your sermon titles or all that, as the sermons or whatever your media is changes, whatever, but we use recurring events and it just runs itself. I mean, throw some cues in there, but that's really almost all the intervention you got to do as far as for streaming. It just works. It's rock solid. the Resi streaming protocol is, it's extremely hard to kill. I mean, I have not been able, other than accidentally unplugging something from like the network switch, I have not been able to find a situation where it has flaked out on its own accord. I mean, it just works. It's extremely painless. You go and you manage the whole thing from a web portal. I mean, what's not to like? I mean, it just works. And you've got solutions for little installations, big installations, maybe even some mobile installations. I mean, you got a product for each player in the market. I mean, it just works.
Well, Mr. Bags, I appreciate your time, man.
Of course.
Sharing stories. This is what I love.
Yeah,
personally,
this is
what
fun.
Resi loves.
Yeah, this is fun.
Like sitting down, talking shop.
Yeah,
talking your production, and just,
I love to do it.
Right. So, and thank you for sharing all of your wisdom.
Of course. I mean, I'm by no means like some like freaking seasoned whatever, but I got some stuff to share.
Well, and that's it. Everyone has their own fixes. Everyone has
Absolutely.
their own workflows. So we bring it together, and that's my goal in these conversations. So
I think that's great.
Thank you so much, and yeah,
thank you
keep on streaming, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been awesome.
Of course, thank you.